Yeah, first of all, I think we have been as an organization at it for the past decade now. And in just the last 2-3 years, just to see the amount of dialogue and conversation around road safety is really heartening for us as an organization. I want to congratulate NDTV and Diageo for taking this initiative, not just for a year now. I'm seeing this, it's every year, so it's great. I think people who die in road accident victims, 50% of them actually die of treatable injuries. So they can be saved. Typically they die because of excessive bleeding. The Good Samaritan law concept basically looks at bystander care. The person who is next to the accident victim or somebody who is passing by should be empowered not to be scared to call for emergency services. People typically die bleeding on the road. And so right now we have, as a country, we have a Good Samaritan law. Unfortunately, not much has been talked about it. Propagation has not happened, so people on the road don't know about it. So as of now, if you see an accident victim, go ahead and call the police, go ahead and call emergency services. You can remain anonymous. You have the right in India right now to not reveal your name. And that was the biggest fear for any individual.
And are police forces accepting this? Has it dawned on police forces that they need to be sensitive to this new law? They cannot be harassing a person who's actually trying to help
not completely. It's a process. Typically, it takes at least a few years for the beat constable to understand that I will not be asking somebody for his or her name. This sensitization has to happen continuously. It cannot happen overnight. So, but that effort has to come from the government side as well.
Dr. Oak, tell us a little bit about the golden hour in a hospital. Why is the golden hour?
Yeah, it's so two things are important. As Sohailji very rightly mentioned, it's the pre-hospital period and the pre-hospital transfer. So one is you have to stop if someone has met with an accident and go for its assistance. Yes, you may be questioned, you may be detained in the casualty for some time. That's a part of life. Eventually you are going to save somebody's life, and that anonymous person could be your next kith and kin. It has happened at times. Second thing is, how do you transfer? Because sometimes unscientific modalities of transfer have rendered more harm than the actual accident has done. It particularly happens in cervical spine injuries, lumbar spine injuries. So that is second part where we are working together. The third thing is, once a patient is received in the hospital, the whole culture of the hospital also needs to change from casualty, which is a casual approach, to an accident and emergency service area, where what is called as triage. Triage means to sort out. That is done. And suppose if there are 5 or 6 victims, we decide which one needs to be attended most and first. You know, ironically, he may be the quietest of the lot, but he's the one who is bleeding internally and needs more attention, rather than the one who is making all loud noise about this. So these are the fundamental things. But in that golden hour, if you are able to stabilize airway, if you are able to stabilize breathing, if you are able to stop hemorrhage, we can save significant number of lives.
Yeah. Shaina, thanks very much for being with us. The road safety bill is something that this government has spoken about, the minister has spoken about extensively, but it's difficult to actually get all parties and all states to accept it, because where does the funding come from? And so despite the best intention to push this forward, it's not happened. Is this going to happen soon? Can we expect it by this government?
Absolutely, without a doubt, and I say it because I have the conviction that Nitin Gadkari is the correct minister at the right place and somebody who has championed road safety. You know, we've lost some of our greatest leaders also, not as if it's a token to leadership, but you take Gopinath Munde's case. I mean, it was most tragic how he just lost his life. Yes. And I think that that has also been something that has been discussed internally in the party on multiple occasions. Not that I'm suggesting a life of a politician is more than a life of any other citizen. But you look at what Nitin Gadkari himself is doing. I mean, he has not just talked about this bill and championing the cause, but he has got all stakeholders. And correct me if I'm wrong, people like Dr. Oak have also been consulted. So there are stakeholders from various fields, and I think that what they have talked about and what Sohail said is so correct, that you have an accident, you have the immediate medical facility that is required, And then you have people like the Good Samaritans who are talking about the importance of bystanders. I'd like to question, even in a city like Mumbai, if we do see an accident, how many of us actually stop? All of us think, let's not get into this jhanjat.
Yeah.
Who wants to be a witness? Who wants to go to court?
So you wanted to say something?
Who wants to be a part of this whole problem and not realizing where you're going to go? So I think where it's important as a political class is also to give faith to the bystanders, that you have a moral responsibility, a legal responsibility. More importantly, you're a human being, and this could happen to any of us, so we must participate.
See, there is a very critical thing which governments of today are ignoring, and whether it's BJP, Congress, they're all the same in this regard, which is, when we were growing up, if you remember, we were part of the Boy Scouts movement. I mean, I'm sure girls were part of the Girl Scout movement, we hope. We were also part of NCC. One of the fundamental things that were taught were primary first aid care to people. All of that is missing from our curriculum. So even young children, who, by the way, have the greatest propensity to help, teenagers, you know, they're the ones who are more courageous than the middle-aged, as it were. That, you know, identified education, sorry, needs to be brought back into the system. We don't know how to administer first aid. We don't know how to prevent bleeding.
So true.
And these are critical things which need to come back into the curriculum.
Part of what you've been doing is CPR training, right?
Yeah.
And who typically wants to actually learn about CPR skills and be certified in it? I mean, should it really be part of our school education, our curriculum?
Absolutely. I think CPR is not just for road accidents cases. It can happen in our homes as well. If somebody is having a heart attack, you can use that training and help out your own kith and kin. But I think what's important is to understand who is the first responder, right? Even in a city like Bombay, typically it's always the beat cop or the police person who is actually around. But if you see, he will not be trained how to handle a victim. You know, so I think, as what Suhail said, that we need to look at it holistically. Whether it's drink driving, what works in drink driving is enforcement is what works in drink driving. What works in roads and how we construct our roads is engineering. You were mentioning about the bill. Let me say that the government in the past 2 years has done incredible work to ensure that new legislation, a stronger legislation can be brought in. As you said, there were opposition from the states, but now they have an amendment bill which they have worked through. Yeah. And right now it's in the parliament. Now it's the parliament's responsibility, as you know what's happening in the parliament as of now.
Parliament is allowed.
So I think it has to be a collective responsibility. Sure. Everybody has to get in there and get this thing passed.
Sure. You know, I also want to say something about people like Karishma who are supporting these things. Bollywood has a very, very pervasive influence over shaping minds. You know, I'm glad that people from the film industry, people from sport, so Virat Kohli, are coming out and talking about these things. For far too long, we've brushed this under the carpet because as long as it doesn't happen to me, it's not important. But what we don't realize is we're actually going down a spiral which we will never recover from. For instance, now the police. The police still in this country, despite Narendra Modi's Digital India and you know, all that other stuff, we don't have a record of actually violations of drunk driving norms. You know, the DIU norms in America, DUI, whatever, you know, those norms need to be imposed here.
Yeah.
You need people for their licenses to be taken away. You need all of that. And finally, I would be delighted if a news channel would actually shame people and call it the road of rogues. So all the people who've been arrested that month for drunk driving, put their names on the ticker. It'll be a great idea. Let them be shamed.
That's the marketing guru talking.
No, but
And I think
you know, rather than just have ministers being put on the ticker.
Okay, Abanti, I want to speak to you actually about some of our goals this year. Celebrate responsibly, never drink and drive, and always have a designated driver. Before you answer that, I want to ask you about the reception this campaign has had, not just in the big cities, but we've taken it across elsewhere. So what's the reception been, which is why we really want to keep doing this?
So I think what comes across to us as a delight is the fact that this message has now become part of the discourse
Yeah.
in all cities, not just in the metros, but even in the smaller cities. And I think it's serving to be a platform where different stakeholders come together to discuss and debate potential solutions holistically, like we just discussed. It's not just any one thing, but multiple things. And as part of the campaign, which is something we absolutely want to retain, we've done a lot of on-ground activations where citizens from different walks of life have actually come together. So I think the reception has been extremely promising. It's a long road ahead, but our view was somebody's got to start. And I think we've made that start 2 years ago. And I have to say, I'm delighted to see that this year, for instance, your channel and a couple of other channels are carrying other programs from other companies, corporates supporting road safety. So I just feel very good about the fact that we have been a force for good, a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
Also, Vishnu, use technology. For instance, why can't we create an app, technology which actually tells you if you've gone above the permissible limit? B, I remember telling the Diageo people many years ago to actually install breathalyzers at bars to actually tell you whether you're in the permissible.
Should it be done over here?
Whether it's under
that-
the permissible limit.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if we actually look at each minute detail.
Dr. Vishwanath, that's not a bad suggestion.
No,
You
it's
think
being
it's something?
done. What Mr. Sohail said, many companies have come forward to put this in every bar. It costs 50,000 rupees, and all taxi numbers, all those obey, all those things are written by the side. So if you show, if your analyzer shows that you are drunk beyond that particular limit, whatever, immediately you are supposed to call a taxi and go. And the bar, whoever is operating the bar is not supposed to allow you out of the bar.
Right.
So that's being implemented.
But which
Vishnu, I'm,
All bars. I can't say I will go to the bar.
I'm looking at a day when the car engine would refuse to start analyzing the breath in my exhaled breath.
This is
I
being
can't
done.
drive. The car just would refuse to
If you
start.
just live in Delhi, it won't start in any case.
I think that Diageo, that company is also sponsoring.
Karishma, let me ask you about another key part of this campaign, designated drivers. It's something that exists in so many other countries. It's people just don't do it here for some reason. Would you like to spread a
Well, I
message?
think
on
it
this?
is starting. There are a lot of apps now, like Party Smart and things like that, which a lot of young couples and young people do use. So I think it is available now, and I'm sure it'll even grow further. So people should be aware that it is available. So it shouldn't be an excuse that, "Arey, mera driver nahi tha, koi tha nahi to." And I think a lot of young people feel, "I'll just have a drink or two and I can handle it." Well, that is not the case. If you are even having one drink, you cannot drive a vehicle, period.
What about, but again, what about the moderate consumption of alcohol? For those who drink, it's obviously a very personal choice. But then how do you assume that you can drink responsibly?
No,
And
that's
assuming, of
exactly-
course, that you're not driving, so that's out of the question. But then just being responsible as a drinker, how do you actually figure out where to stop?
Well, I think it's from person to person. Like basically, I don't like alcohol, but there are some people who enjoy a drink like every night. So I think for health reasons also nowadays you hear, people will say, I've had one drink or two drinks. But then there are people who think, they can have 10 drinks and be totally fine, which is unrealistic.
See,
so there is no really a demarcation.
See, the stigmatization should not be of alcohol. It should be of irresponsible behavior.
It's the responsibility.
I think the responsibility quotient in public at large. Are we
Should be
responsible? Are we going to take onus? If you go out and drink, are you going to take care of yourselves? And another good thing is, gone are the days when you think you can just bribe the cop, because now it's impossible for you to be even doing that.
And you would have changed.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that comment, Sohail. But I think more importantly, the fines have been raised, almost tenfold.
Yeah.
So somebody who's going to be irresponsible also realizes that there's a huge price to pay. So I think as a society, if we talk about responsibility rather than getting into sermonizing that you must not drink or you must drink, but about the importance of not drinking and driving. And that's why I'd like to compliment NDTV, because you all are one of the few channels that have a collective conscience to talk about these issues, rather than who said what and who did what.
Yeah.
See, many years ago in New York, there's a campaign which was run by young people, which basically talked about peer respect, peer approval, and peer disapproval. So it wasn't about whether you were drinking too much or drinking less. It was what you were doing after the drinking. You know, if you were irresponsible to drive, if you were irresponsible to, if you were misbehaving, that kind of stuff. Social shaming is a very important tool. But you've got to figure the contours of social shaming. Here what happens is, a lot of machismo is associated with a guy who drinks and drives, thinking, doesn't matter. Haryana is the Wild West. So, if you actually look at those areas, and if you don't have social shaming, blended with demonstrable punishment, which is very penal in purview, you won't be able to solve this